Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
Of all the candidates running for President of the United States, the best one I've seen isn't Bernie Sanders. It's not even Donald Trump. It's the candidate of the US Green Party. She's a better woman than Clinton. She's a better Democrat than Sanders.
And if Sanders were to win the nomination, the left vote in America will certainly be torn. If Clinton wins, our next guest might do very well indeed.
She's Dr. Jill Stein, and she's running for the presidency of the USA, which would make her the most powerful woman in the history of the world. How's that? That's quite a prize. How are you doing? How's your campaign going?
It's going great. It's going gangbusters. There's a rebellion going on in the U.S., as in much of the world, for good reason. We're in crisis, and people really want to see change. And, you know, the point we're making is that you cannot have a revolution inside of a counter-revolutionary party, that this is a big fight, a deep fight, and a long fight. And, you know, it can't simply be passed on to Hillary Clinton. And we think that Bernie Sanders is running a very principled and powerful campaign. He's riding that wave of revolt. But, you know, unfortunately, he's in a party which has a track record for basically sabotaging its rebels. It has done a good job of doing that in the past, from Dennis Kucinich to Jesse Jackson to Howard Dean, and whether they use a PR campaign like the Dean Scream to bring down the Dean candidacy. Also, Jesse Jackson was sabotaged by a PR campaign by the DNC. You know, the Democratic Party has its ways of reining people in if they try to rebel. The bottom line is that we have a political system in the U.S. which is funded by predatory banks and fossil fuel giants and war profiteers. So we really need to reject that system. We say to reject the lesser evil so we can stand up and really fight for the greater good.
Oh, very well put. I better not start on the Democratic Party because I've had a lifelong experience of the very betrayals and so on that you allude to. Let me assume, and I think it's a safe assumption, that Donald Trump, God forbid, but likely to be the Republican Party candidate, and Hillary Clinton, as Kissinger once said, it's a pity they both can't lose, but maybe they could, because you're there as an alternative. Give me your thumbnail sketch of those two likely opponents.
Unfortunately, they have an awful lot in common. They both support a very strong military. They support, you know, a budget in which 54% of our tax dollars, our discretionary budget, is going to the military to fight these wars, which are not making us safer. They are not making the world a safer place. They are really, you know, they are firing back at us madly, creating failed states and refugee crises and worse terrorist threats, actually. So they both fail to see the picture on that account. They're both very much representatives of the oligarchy. Hillary Clinton, who was on the board of directors for Walmart, there's no more oppressive a corporation for workers' rights and women than Walmart. You know, who never found a war that she didn't support. Donald Trump, it's hard to say exactly where he stands because he changes his mind all the time.
He has a mind?
One thing is very clear, which is that he is not friendly to immigrants. And, you know, for him not to understand that in our country we are all immigrants, and in fact that immigrants are really the vitality and the diversity of our communities, our economy, our culture. You know, this is a very dangerous thing. This is sort of the slippery slope to fascism. I must say there is nothing inspiring, there's nothing really enlightened about either of those campaigns. They're both representatives of oligarchy. And at this point, it's unclear whether the Republicans will allow Donald Trump to be nominated. There's talk now about Ryan being a brokered candidate at the Republican convention.
Who's he?
That's Paul Ryan. He's Speaker of the House, and he's also the chairman of the Republican National Committee. And you know, he's sort of the establishment Republican Party, which is very much at war with Donald Trump.
Well, let's stay on Trump for a moment, but I know Gayatri wants to talk about Clinton. He seems to me, you mentioned the word fascism, he seems to me on the edge of a kind of Mussolini-type politics. He's threatening to punch people in the face at big rallies. He insults people in the most personal way, even on television. He referred a few days ago to someone should have been carried out of here on a stretcher. There's a kind of
Scary
fascism in this, underneath this blonde thatch.
Oh, agreed completely. You know, from the start when he began talking about Mexican immigrants as, you know, rapists and murderers, to advocating that we shoot the family members of suspected terrorists, to wanting to bar all Muslims from entering the country. I mean, this is very scary stuff, and this is what demagoguery looks like. These are
real, though. Is it? That's what I wonder. Is he not just playing into the voters'?
Well,
and unfortunately, that's what demagogues do,
Yeah.
you know, and then there's no holding them back, and then they
encourages the other.
Yes,
he talked the other day about dipping bullets in pig fat
pig
to
blood,
shoot
yes.
Muslims,
Yes.
and how it worked then, and it could work now. He
Yes.
actually said
Yes.
those words. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you mentioned earlier the women's rights. Now, Hillary's obviously playing the feminist card, but she has killed so many women in her war promotions as foreign secretary, which obviously stands opposed what you stand for. Well, it's quite ironic, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yes. I mean, it's as if elect me because I have 2 X chromosomes, you know, and I talk about women, but, you know, she really addresses the needs of women very much around the margins. Yes, childcare would be wonderful, and after-school programs and equal wages, but how about we have wages which are living wages that can keep a family out of poverty? No one is hurt more from the austerity agenda that Hillary Clinton has been a promoter of. You know, she was very much on board with her husband when he dismantled the safety net for poor women, put an end to welfare as we know it, created a very harsh prison policy, locking up poor African American people, very hard on crime, mandatory sentencing. You know, Hillary Clinton has been behind all of that, and now she's suddenly trying to change her tune. So yes, this doesn't work. And I think this makes it all the more important. You know, we sort of see the political system in the U.S. In a free fall, really. You know, it's been held hostage by oligarchy, by big money for decades, and it's, you know, the latest step has been Citizens United. But there were a series of decisions leading up to this, and as money has become more concentrated in fewer hands, to where, you know, it's now 62 billionaires that have the wealth of half the entire world's population, and most of that is in the U.S. You know, that's been building, and as it has, in the words of the famous Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, we can either have a democracy or vast concentrations of wealth. So we've got that vast wealth. It's now, you know, in the hands of political parties. And the rub here is that you have to identify that. You have to call it out. The problem here is not just the billionaires. The problem is also the political parties whom the billionaires control, which is why we feel in order to really achieve economic equality, in order to achieve a climate and an environment that we can survive in to the end of this century, let alone, you know, a world for our children, to end these massive and expanding wars, we have to really transform not only our economy, not only our military, but in order to do all of that, we've really got to transform our political system. And it has happened before. The predators put out this mythology that resistance is futile, and they have all these explanations for why things can't change. And they want you basically to be locked into powerlessness. But there are plenty of examples. History is full of examples about how change can happen from the bottom up, and even at the top resonating with the bottom. So, for example, a third party has been elected to the presidency of the United States, and the example is Abraham Lincoln. The Republican Party was an independent and new third party just before the Civil War. It became the party of abolition, and a third-party candidate, Abraham Lincoln, was elected at a time of great transition.
He's quite well remembered. The Labour Party also was a third party.
That's right.
And in the minutes left to us, that's, I think, what we used to call, when it was a lot of money, the $64,000 question. That Tweedledee versus Tweedledum, and you choose which is the least ugly of the two to be your president. There's no future in that. Apart from anything else, it's an open invitation to Tweedledum's party to be as much like Tweedledee's as possible, and increasingly converging. So a third party is vitally necessary in the United States. But what do you think its chances are in this poll? Imagine Trump versus Clinton versus Dr. Jill Stein. What's the chances of making a breakthrough?
I think a breakthrough is going to happen. You know, the question is, how big a breakthrough will it be? In the words of Woody Allen, half of life is showing up. You want to be there so that when the house of cards comes down, you are there. And in my view, that is our obligation, and that is where we declare victory. You know, the victory is getting as far and as fast as we possibly can towards a world in which we can survive and a world in which we can thrive, because we can't do that on the trajectory that we're on right now. And whether we get to 5% or whether we get to 55%, the point is to be ready. We're in the age of the black swan event right now. All these unlikely and absolutely impossible things are happening, both for better and for worse, because we're sort of in this age of consequences right now of the corporate hijack of our economy and our political system. So we have both terrible things happening on the right, and we have a real social mobilization, a movement for democracy and justice, which is really sweeping across the planet right now. That needs to be reflected in our political system. And I'll leave you with one thought. That's this. There are 43 million young people who are in debt right now in the United States, for whom there is no future, and for whom the two parties are exactly the same. The Democrats and Republicans offer them nothing. 43 million people, if they learn that there is one candidate who will abolish their debt, and I am the only candidate that will do that, we could see 43 million people self-mobilize to come out and vote. 43 million is a plurality of the vote in a three-way race. So if young people learn that they can take over this election, take back their economic future, their climate future, their future of racial justice, bring a whole justice agenda with the cancellation of debt, they can actually achieve that by checking the green box on November 8th.
Dr. Jill Stein, maybe soon the most powerful woman in the history of the world. Thanks very much for joining us on the Sputnik.
Coming up next, it's time to box clever and box up crime. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Sputnik. It's the one bit of grandmotherly wisdom which politicians never seem to get. A stitch in time saves 9. It costs more per year to send a young man to prison than it does to send him to Eton. But for a mere fraction of that cost, young men could be saved from the road to jail in the first place.
In a time of austerity, the taxpayer is paying out hundreds of millions of pounds, putting people behind bars, after which most of them go on to commit more expensive crime. Yet, youth services are the first to be slashed by the government and local authorities alike, leaving boys and girls on the University of Mean Streets.
One young man who attended that university was on that road, but dragged himself off it with his own hands, or rather his fists, is Stephen Addison of Box Up Crime. And I'm glad to say he's in the ring with me now. Stephen, thanks for joining us. We'll come on to Box Up Crime and what you're doing with it in a minute. But tell us, please, first, how you got here, what road you were on, and how you got off it.
It's been a long journey, and I'm very thankful that I'm here and I'm alive today. You know, I thank God for taking me from where I was, because I was in a very dark place. I caught up in a lot of negative stuff. All my friends around me, they were involved in drugs, fraud, and it was this complete darkness. But growing up in a deprived London estate, Barking's probably one of the most poorest estates in London, and there's not really much to kind of look forward to. Like a lot of young people, they kind of follow this ideology that the only way to be successful is through drugs or fraud or robberies. Young people, they don't really kind of aspire to kind of get involved in like becoming a business leader or setting up an organization or becoming a sportsman. Like these sort of realities are not common for young people because it's not been exposed to young people. And from where I'm from, I kind of got caught up into that reality, thinking that the only way I can be successful is through crime. The transformation took place for me at the age of 20. So
What brought about that transformation?
So I had a dream at the age of 20 that me and my friends were going to go to prison for life for murder. And within that dream, I saw that the judge said, you know what, Stephen, you guys have been convicted for murder, and this is you guys are going to go jail. And I can remember looking at my mates in the dream saying that this is messed up. And then I could see my mum like crying in the gallery. It was in the Old Baileys. And the dream just felt so real. And then I just felt God just say to me in the dream that, Stephen, if you carry on living the lifestyle that you're living, this is going to be your reality. So I woke up in the morning and I told my mum, let me go back. So after God explained it to me that this is going to be my reality, if I carry on that lifestyle, he said if I change my life around and give my life to him and start focusing, he will make my story change, and I'll become a role model, and I'll become an inspiration to many young people across the world, and I'll help young kids get off the streets and out of gangs. My life started taking a whole different route. I stopped talking to my mates. I was 21 stones. I was overweight, but I just found some sort of confidence in my newfound faith, you know, and I just started going boxing. I was going boxing every single day because that was taken away, that was filling up my diary from what I used to do, because every single day I was on the streets with my mates. But now every single day I was in the boxing gym, and my coach used to train me every day. His name was Tony Cisse, and he used to look after me, pick me up from college, take me to the gym, and then I just started finding like purpose, and I was really focusing. I picked up the confidence to go to university to study business, and when I got into university, I lost a lot of weight. I shed about 7 stones in fat, and my university asked me, Stephen, do you want to compete in the British Championships, like for the uni? Do you want to represent the uni? And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind. And this is 2 years later from me actually having that dream.
2 years after the dream.
2 years after the dream, and I competed at the British Championships, and I won gold. I won gold at it, and I was really excited. So I went to go and get the newspapers to go and show my family and stuff like that, and my friends. And I remember when I picked up that newspaper that day, I was on the back page in the sports section for winning the championship. But then I see on the front page four of my mates, and one of them in particular is the one I kept telling about the dream. So this is the dream I had, and the judge had given them 93 years in prison for murder. So like the dream that I had 2 years ago had actually manifested and come to life. So
you see, that's such an extraordinary story that one imagines it's a dream, one imagines it's a film.
Yeah.
But I can vouch for the fact that what you've just told the viewers is absolutely correct. On the day that you got the gold medal, the friends went to jail for murder. God is great. There is no doubt about that. Tell us how you was it through your studies of business that you have managed now, not just to be a role model, but to make this wonderful project, Box Up Crime?
At the time when I got the news, and then I saw myself in the back and I see my friends, I kind of forgot about the dream that I had previous to that, because nothing had manifested, nothing had actually happened. So to me, it was just a dream. To my friends, it was just a dream. To everyone around me, it was just a dream. But then when I see that, I was like, wow, I remember, God, you showed me that 2 years ago. And I just felt a deep sense of conviction. I was humbled the fact that God gave me that opportunity to still be free and reveal that to me. And then when I was at university, I was my final year, and we was asked to do a dissertation. So I decided to study how to set up a social enterprise that can effectively create change amongst young people. So my lecturer at the time at London South Bank University was Dr. Gloria Gordon. And she told me, Stephen, like, why don't you actually, since this, because she knew my whole journey, she knew my journey, and she said, Stephen, why don't you actually set something up and that create a sound model that will actually help affect the change that you're looking for. So my dissertation title was called When Passion Meets Purpose, Preparing for My Breakthrough. So I wanted to find out what happens when you bring passion and purpose together. Like, what happens? So that was my main thesis for the dissertation. And the passion at the time was boxing, because I loved boxing. I still love boxing. And then the purpose was helping young people come off the streets. So I wanted to bring the two together, boxing and helping young people come off the streets. And I came up with the idea of Box Up Crime. And we came up with the conclusion that P plus P equals M. So purpose plus passion equals meaning. And that was like the main conclusion of my dissertation. I would not find meaning until I actually put my purpose and passion together.
Did you come up with the name even?
I came up with the name Box Up Crime.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So this is like Box Up Crime. So done my
And
dissertation.
has it worked? Has it saved other young men like you?
Well, it's working. It's doing great. Like, I got a first class for my dissertation, and my university was like, this idea looks like it will be great. Let's really sponsor it and see if it can go further. So they gave me £1,200 to actually do a pilot study, 6-week pilot study. We did our 6-week pilot study in 2013, August, and we had 120 kids come down for the pilot study. And after the 6-week pilot study, a lot of the kids were like, oh, we want that back. But I literally had no other finances to fund it. So I was like, how am I going to do it? And then God opened the door, and he allowed me to pay for the rent for the 3 months, like, to get like the hall space. And we invited all the kids in the community to come down. Now, 3 years down the line, we're still doing it. We're working with 600 kids a week. 600 young kids a week. We get referrals from probation, from the youth services. Like, we work in schools. We provide behavioural programs. The same school that I actually got kicked out of and told never to come back, they actually offered me a contract to take over their behavioural unit, and so I now run the behavioural unit at my old school. That was probably like one of the worst students there. I got kicked out 15 times in my old school, and I remember like, I was just a nightmare. Like, every parent's evening, my mum will come home crying. But now I'm back in the same school working with students which were just like myself. We've got so many awards. We've won so many awards. We won the Team London Award in 2013. That was given to us by the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. But for me, like, it's not the awards that mean stuff to me.
Has he helped out a lot in your project?
Boris, he's been supportive. He's kind of put us on that platform where a lot of people look at us in a different way. When we won that award, people didn't just see it as, oh, this is Stephen from the streets. But now they start seeing, the recognition. Like, a lot of the people in that kind of world started thinking, let's take interest in this. But for me, like, the most important thing is seeing kids' lives changed. I'm seeing young kids that have come out of gangs. I'm seeing kids that have been walking around with guns, knives. I'm seeing kids that have stabbed kids. And now I'm seeing them working, like, in Box Up as mentors and role models and leaders. And for me, that is the only award I kind of really want. That's the only recognition I really want. A lot of people ask me, why are you doing it for free? The kids come down to my gym every week for free, and we don't really get much core funding. We don't get no core funding. People ask me, why are you taking on that social responsibility? Like, who commissions you to do it? But for me, I believe that the commissioning comes from a higher source, which is God. So I believe that the purpose that I have in this world is to work with these young people, that provide opportunities for these young people. I don't want to see young kids go to jail for 30 years and get murdered, because I've grown up seeing that often. So it's now time that I'm happy, I'm thankful that I'm in this position to really work with these kids. And even the fact that you offered this opportunity, this platform for me to share this story, like, it speaks volumes. Like, this shows that what a great person you are.
You're the one who speaks volumes. You're a knockout, Stephen. Thanks for coming on the Sputnik, and we'll make sure that your project is properly showcased on the screen.
God bless you.
God bless you. And now it's your turn to tell us what you think through the portals of social media. What's rattling, Gayatri?
So who do you fear most, Trump or Clinton?
That's a hard one.
It's a hard one. So geopolitics says Trump, because he's privileged, self-obsessed sociopath that couldn't care less about others. Hugh Bone then responds, "You've just described Hillary." Lenny Etheridge then says, "It's a bit like Blair or Cameron, both cheeks of the same bottom."
Well, it's a very powerful set of points. I mean, it's always to an extent Tweedledee and Tweedledum, but
as we discussed,
this
yes.
is as close as you can get. I mean, Trump, leaving aside his personal characteristics, stands for exactly the same things as Hillary
They're
Clinton.
both monsters.
Well, they are. They're both monsters. I'm sorry to say.
The one is XX, the other XI.
Yeah. One's got 2 X chromosomes.
And that's all that we've got time for this week.
Which, alas, means that's the end of the show.
But you can stay in touch with us through Twitter at RT_Sputnik or on Facebook, Sputnik on Russia Today. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.